Welcome into another edition of the Stripe Show podcast. It is a Froggy Wednesday, all brought to you by About Golf Simulators. Joined this week by seven-time PGA Tour champion, Billy Horschel. Billy, thanks again. This is what, your third or fourth time being on the podcast?
It's got to be somewhere up there. I've always enjoyed coming on and talking with you, Froggy. Obviously, we're good friends. So yeah, whatever that number is I've been on, I'll go with it.
Yeah, so good. You know what was a good week of golf we had this past week, and getting ready to play the final week on the PGA Tour, the Wyndham Clark. Before we get into the FedEx, not the Wyndham Clark. I'm sorry, I got Wyndham Clark on the brain for him winning the U.S. Open. I think he won this event though one time. I think Wyndham did win the Wyndham Championship one year. But anyway, yes, we got the Wyndham this week, coming off the 3M last week. Bama alum, former SEC guy. It's no secret, Billy and I love SEC football. Bama alum Lee Hodges gets his first win. I saw your Instagram post.
Yeah,
Lee's a good dude.
Yeah, he's a good dude. I don't know him that well. Obviously, had a few interactions with him out here, but he's well respected out here amongst the guys, and the guys that I do know that do know him really well speak really highly of him. Just a great guy, great person. If I'm correct in saying this, I think he played at a community college or a lower division college for a year or two, and then transferred into Alabama. So obviously, he's worked his way up to become a good player. And listen, it's pretty impressive. It's one thing to win on the PGA Tour. It's another thing to do it wire to wire and win by 7 shots like he did, and have a substantial lead pretty much since the second round. And it's pretty cool to see the emotion that he had. And his caddy Andrew is a good person. He's an Auburn guy. He played, I think, college golf at Auburn. So listen, SEC ties there. But yeah, it's pretty cool to see what Lee did last week and since dominating that tournament.
Yeah, it really was a good win. The finish was kind of marred a little bit by what happened. I'm not sure if you watched it. I knew you were there. A good week for you, the best week you've had on tour since back in April at the Zurich, finished T13. Poston there at the end. So to kind of go over what happened, they both tee off. Poston doesn't hit the best drive. It's a little right. It's got a downhill lie there by the hazard. Hodges hits, lays up. So he's laying 2, got a very safe layup, got an easy shot into the green, relatively speaking, for a tour professional. So Poston decides to go for it from a questionable lie, bounces off the rock into the water, ends up having to redrop and makes an 8. Cost him, I believe, $260,000. And he finished, instead of solo second, finished tied for second with other people. After the round's over, says he would make that decision 10 out of 10 times. Is that the same decision that you would make, or is it a situation where you have to be in it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I saw it. We were flying to Wyndham. I had Tyson Alexander, a good friend of mine, and Gator alum as well. We just saw the results on the PGA Tour app, and we were like, well, what happened to JT? He was like at 20 under par, and obviously then we looked at the shot details, and then we saw the video. Listen, that's a tough call to make, and I give kudos to JT for taking it on and trying to win. Obviously, he was 3 back playing that last hole, needed something special to happen. Lee was in the middle of the fairway, laid up.
Right.
You're not expecting him. I mean, if he makes bogey, that's a bad bogey from 115 yards. He's going to hit it deep into the green like he did. Use that slope, and if it spins back, if it spins back, it's great. If it doesn't, he's got a 20-footer, 2-putt easy par. So JT was trying to make something special happen. Listen, I think it's awesome. I want guys to try and win golf tournaments. I want guys out on the PGA Tour not thinking about the money. I think, listen, and I don't fault the guy if they play for money on the PGA Tour. And there are guys out on the PGA Tour that play solely for the money. Yes, they want to win, they want to be a top player, but at the end of the day, they're more worried about the money than anything else. And that's just an honest fact. And, people have talked about it, and they've talked, players have talked about that in public before. But, I want a guy trying to be the best player he can be and taking on, shots and not worrying about, the finish or the money side of it and going for the win. Because at the end of the day, I think, I think that's what makes our tour better. When you got guys wanting to be the best player they can be and trying to win tournaments and not their sole focus is the paycheck at the end of the day.
So great comeback week for you. T13. Like I said earlier, your best finish since the Zurich when you'd had a T11 back in April. Is the game getting back on track, Billy? And this goes back to, the Memorial Week is when it kind of all came to a head. There was the press conference at the Memorial. Most guys, after shooting 84 in a week, when you are, the media has, it brought you in as the defending champion. You've got the own pressure on yourself to come in and play well to kind of back up your win the previous year. Things didn't go well. After that round, you don't just run and hide. You sit there, you do the press conference. That was well documented there. But it's been an uptick since then. Is the game getting back on track?
Yeah, it is. It's, since that moment, since, that interview. And listen, I got, like anything, you catch flack for anything in the world today. Doesn't matter what you do. There's someone who's going to hate on you or say something negative. And, I got my negative comments about, why is he crying? He shot 84. He plays golf professionally, makes a lot of money. Listen, it's not that. The 84 is not why I cried. It was, months of grinding at the game of golf and not seeing results. And like you said, coming to a tournament where I just won last year, the defending champ. I want to go out there and try and win again and play a respectable tournament.
Right.
And, the play bad, it just was it all just encompassed everything I've been feeling the last 5 months. And
well, anybody who's ever put effort into something and you want to succeed and you've worked as hard as you can and the results aren't happening, that's frustrating. And when you do it on a stage in front of everybody, that's even more frustrating. And that's where that comes from. It's not a one-off thing. It's not, I shot a bad round, I'm upset.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And listen, this isn't just a golf thing or a one-off thing. This is life. It's no different than someone else grinding away at life and trying to make their lives better, or trying to make their kids' life better, and things aren't, working out, and it just don't seem like you're making any progress, and it wears on you. It wears on you, and this is what my job does, and this is my job, and I'm lucky to do it, and I'm fortunate enough to be successful at it and financially successful as well. But speaking to the media, I sat in there for a few minutes after I signed my scorecard. I got up, and the media people asked if I would speak to the media. And listen, I mean, I could have easily said no. I knew there was probably going to be a question or two about my round of golf and where, my mental state was, because I talked about that the day before. But, I look at it as a sense that those people that are in the media, they've got a job to do too. And, if they want to ask me questions, I want to try and help them out. And I try to give, the most honest and open answer. I've always been that way. And so, I wasn't expecting going there to cry or sort of show the emotion and have tears and everything. But it just sort of hit me at that moment. And I was just very vulnerable, and I'm not afraid to show that. It doesn't make me any, less of a person by doing that. But I think
it makes you real.
Moment, it makes, yes, exactly. And my thing is, the more, I've always thought this way, I'm just a normal person. I'm fortunate enough that I play a sport that is highly publicized, that's on TV, and on the financial side, I get rewarded for being successful at. But in the day, I'm a real person. I'm no different than anyone else. And anyone who thinks that they're bigger than somebody else because of what their paycheck is or their title or something, like, I just don't agree with that. Like, you're just a normal person. You're, lucky enough to be successful and do certain things that other people aren't. But, since that moment, it was like a weight had been off my chest. I got a weight off my chest just to be like, man, this is just tough. And I'm not the first pro to go through it. I won't be the last one to go through it. But since that moment, the game has progressed to where, what we saw last week, the results may not have shown, how I felt like I've been playing and where I felt like the game was going, the tournaments before the 3M Open. But it was nice to finally see the, more of the result side of it, and sense of a T13 finish and 4 straight rounds in the par, which I haven't done in a long time. So it was nice to, all that to finally come together and feel like the train is finally going forward, and it's got some momentum going forward, and it's not sort of just getting stuck, that we're going forward, and there's some positive signs, and I'm excited about what's coming down the road, because I still believe there's something special coming at the end of this year. I just don't know what it is. I don't know when it's going to happen.
Well, anybody who's ever played this game, whether you play it professionally or whether you play it with your buddies, you know that it's easy for it to get sideways. And we all have days where, and you obviously on a much grander scale, you have days where you feel like you can't miss, and then you have days where you feel like if the hole was a trash can, you couldn't hit it in there. And it's no different. It is different when the world is watching you, whether the world is television, and that maybe the TV doesn't come to mind while you're standing there on the tee box, but all those people that are standing 10, 15 feet away from you, it's all eyes on you. And so you're expected to perform. You're a professional. And so to be there and not perform, that's tough. And it's not like you spend one day a week and you just go hit balls and you're like, hey, listen, I gave it my all. Like, you're up at dusk and practice until the sun goes down. And then that doesn't include all the mental part that goes into the game. And when you're not seeing results and you're busting your ass, that's when it hurts.
Yeah, it does. I mean, listen, as I said, anyone who puts a lot into it, and I think you know, if you're somewhat in the know of the game of golf, especially the PGA Tour, you know how hard I work in this game, and I've put, I'm one of the hardest workers. And I don't ever like to toot my own horn about anything. It's not my thing. But if they were going to put a list of the guys who work the hardest out there on tour, I'm not afraid to put my name in the top 5 there.
Right. No.
And so, listen, it's one of those things that, like I said, anything that you work hard and you believe and you put your blood, sweat, tears, and all the passion and everything you can into being great at something, and you're not seeing the results, it wears on you. It does. And I've been fortunate enough since that moment. I've had so many people reach out to me, family, friends, sponsors, other athletes, other people in the business world, just normal people. The support I've had at tournaments has been unreal. And I could have never imagined that in that moment that the support I've received has probably been greater than any support I've ever received after winning a tournament.
I agree with that.
Which is just amazing to me. And I'm so, it touches me, deep down the soul. Like, wow, that just is so surreal to me that moment like that has had such a profound impact on a lot of people.
It shows another side of you.
Yeah. And listen, I know I have, created some type of reputation or whatever, being, maybe a hothead, and I'm not anywhere close to a hothead, or, just certain moments on the golf course where things aren't going well and I get frustrated. And yes, I'm a little more fiery and outward fiery than a lot of players, but I think a lot of, people have a misrepresentation of the person I am or who I am.
I call that passion. I don't call that out. It's passion. It's called giving a damn.
Yeah, which I and at the end of the day, as people say, why do you worry about what people think that, aren't family or friends or close to you or know you? And I said, I've come to learn, you can't worry about those people. And some of those people in the world just hate. They just hate. And that's what they do. And that's what makes them feel good about themselves. And I feel sorry for them that they have to do that to anybody who's trying to be successful at something, to make themselves feel better about them. And
they don't want to rise to your level. They want to pull you down to theirs.
Yeah. And listen, I've come to learn that after being pro for 14 years, being in the public eye now for a while. And so, but at the end of the day, I it still means a lot to me when, I do get the people who are shown, do support me, and that means a lot to me. So it's been a surreal, last, almost 2 months now, from that moment. And it's, like I said, I could never imagine the, outward support that I received from a lot of people. And still a lot of people, I mean, this past week, just the players out here, congratulating me for playing well and saying, hey, great playing last week. That's those little things go a long way. And people don't understand how just something that little, goes a long way in making someone, feel good about themselves or lifts them up even higher.
Yeah, it puts people in your corner, and it always feels good to have more people in your corner. And the problem is the haters are always a little louder because we make them louder in our heads.
Yes, Correct.
We hear them. You know, it's the same. It's the same thing. If 10 people tell you, "Hey, man, you're awesome," and one person says you suck, the one person that tells you you suck is the one that for some reason you remember, and not the other 10 people. And that's just human nature.
It's it's
And
it's crazy the way the mind works, because it's the same thing in golf. You could hit every golf shot perfect, but you hit that one bad golf shot that, or you miss that one putt, and all you're
right,
thinking about is that one missed putt or that one bad shot. You're not thinking about
right,
all the other great shots and putts you made. And the mind is an unbelievable thing, and it
yeah,
can
we're
be
often
so
our own worst
powerful.
enemy.
Yeah, and it can be, but we are our own worst enemy. But the mind can be so powerful in so many ways. You just have to train it, and
Yeah.
to a way that it can be an such an added benefit in anything you do in life.
But as you are getting back on track, Billy, has there been one moment where something you have found something? Because I'm sure you and TA have turned every single stone possible on the range at TPC, and then obviously on the range when you're at events. Has there been one moment where there's been something that has turned it around that's gotten you to where you feel you are playing good golf again?
Yeah. So listen, I mean, I've talked about how, we try to make some swing changes to get better, and when you're at the top level, you got to find every little inch you can to get better. And so we've gotten, we tried to do something that didn't work. We went back to what we did last year, and some of the stuff that we were trying to improve of what we were doing last year has sort of creeped in, and since we've improved that area just by trying to make a change that didn't work and going back to the old stuff, it's sort of resurrected, or fixed itself.
Right.
But I would say since April, I mean, I feel like we've been swinging well. The video looks good. In person it looks good. On the range it doesn't look too bad. Yeah, I still hit some bad shots here and there on the range, but I would say what really happened was we went and worked with Michael Neff Tuesday out at the U.S. Open over at Brentwood Country Club. We just wanted to get on some 3D digital system to see if we were missing something, in the sense of what our eyes couldn't see and detect.
Right.
And from that, working with Michael and getting on his system, the Gears 3D system, he was like, listen, there's nothing I can tell you guys about your swing. Like, everything you're doing in your swing that you want to do to hit the fade is checking every mark. Like, every area I look for to see there's something, off, you're solid on. He said the thing that, sticking out to me is that your lie angles are too upright. And so what causes, what happens from having a too upright lie angle is that you hit the ball a little bit more towards the heel. The ball has a little bit more interaction with the ground, and it causes the toe to turn over more. So,
So it impacted
yes,
toe was a little too high.
yeah, impact the toe is a little too high. So, I want to start the ball left, and I want it to cut back. Well, when the ball would start left, it wouldn't cut back. It would either stay out to the left, or it would almost fall left or draw, which when you're trying to hit a cut and you're aiming left, and if there's trouble left, like, you don't want that ball going
Right.
left. You want the cut away from the trouble.
Right.
And so, in the back of my mind, because I had missed so many shots left, I started backing out of golf shots, coming into impact and backing out of it, and sort of block cutting everything. So now I'm pushing everything. It's starting right at my target, and now it's moving to the right
Oh
away from my
God.
target. And so now I've got a two-way miss. I've got one that starts left and goes left, and I've got one that starts right and goes right. So, from there, we're like, wow, this is so weird, because this is exactly what I'm seeing. And he just said, hey, is this with the upright angle? Are you hitting missing shots this way and that way? And I'm like, yeah. Like, we didn't tell him anything beforehand. We kept him in the blind, and he, by looking at all this numbers and everything, this is what he detected. So we go back to the range. We work with Tireless somehow along the process of, switching from club companies and then being on my own, and then now being with Titleist. Some of the numbers just got, a little lost, or were, the lie angles were just a little off. And so we flattened everything by like 2.5 degrees. And so
That's a
immediately,
lot.
yeah, it's a lot. Immediately, I'm making swings on the range. The ball's starting left and it's cutting now. And I'm like, wow. And so from that moment, now I can believe in the swing changes, or believe in the swing that Todd and I have worked on, that, hey, the swing is good. Now I can trust my swing, and now I can trust that if I start this ball left, it's going to cut back. And that's what I
Right.
finally started seeing at U.S. Open. Now, it took me a little bit of time to get over some of the bad stuff that I had done for 5 months, and truly
Yeah.
believe if I make this swing, whether it was with irons or my woods, the ball's going to cut, because the woods were fine. You know, you don't change lie angles on the woods too much, maybe your fairway woods, but the driver was was a big issue because I've always driven the ball well. But because of the stuff I was started seeing my irons and trying to, you know, cut the ball a bad way because of the way the equipment was, it started creeping into my driver and making
Right.
bad swings with the driver. So then that started a whole, you know, you know, downward effect, because if I'm not driving the ball in the fairway, then now I'm struggling to get it on the
Right.
green. So listen, it's
It
been a
kind of
little bit of
snowballed into a
correct.
bigger, much bigger issue than, and once you're making changes in your swing, just because you fix the equipment, now you've got to undo in your mind and in your body, undo the changes that you had made to try to fix these problems.
Correct. And so now, we've done a lot of really good stuff. And so, what we're doing now, we've got a great foundation. We're just making a few little tweaks now to the swing. And some of those is just trying to keep more width, get the club more out in front of me, keep a little more width, maintain the width in the backswing. Don't let the arm and the club, lose that width. And maintain, like I said, maintain the width in the backswing so I can keep the width coming down, keep the club in front of me, which allows me I can keep opening up. Then the ball can always start left, and I know the ball is always going to cut. So, like I said, it's just little tweaks here and there now, and it's just getting more confident that when I have a shot that it's a little bit more precise and it requires a little bit more precision. I'm going to make the swing that's going to that I need and require to hit a good quality golf shot.
So a fade cut is your stock shot. When you're standing on a tee box, you feel most comfortable, even from the fairway, you are most comfortable hitting a ball that moves, starts left and moves just slightly to the right.
Yeah, so I've always probably about 3 years ago I went to cut, and so that's the way it's been. I'm 99% of the time hitting a cut, especially off the tee. Unless I need to move it, I'll move it from right to left, or if an iron shot calls for, just the way it is.
What do you
I'll
change up when you need, like if you get on, let's say a tee at Augusta and you need to move the ball right to left, what changes? Is it mainly setup changes or are there swing changes that are different as well?
Yeah, I'm just doing setup changes. I'm just closing up a little bit more, closing my feet, closing my hips, closing my shoulders, and then from there I'm sort of making a similar swing, but now I'm swinging on my body line, and from there the ball just draws, and it's not a big draw. It's 7 yards. Obviously, I can move it more when I need to, but
Right.
it's just a slight little draw. It's not a big, bender from right to left.
Right. But your stock shot, you would always, in your mind, you like to see the ball start left on, left side of the fairway, fall back to the center.
Yeah, I just have more control that way. With the way the equipment has been going with less spin and everything, it was just tougher for me to draw it on somewhat of a consistent basis. I was getting a little bit more underneath the plane and flipping it a little bit more. So we just found out that by cutting it, it allowed me to start the ball a little closer to the pin every time. And it doesn't fall a lot, maybe a couple of yards, but I was a lot tighter with my
Right.
windows and the dispersion by just going to a little bit of a fade.
And speaking of struggling on tour, right now Justin Thomas is admittedly struggling on tour. And today, I saw a quote from him today, and he said that quote, "I'm obviously not playing as well as I have in the past, but I'm really not playing that poorly. I haven't really gotten much out of my rounds. Like on Friday last week at the 3M, he said
Yeah.
I had two swings that literally cost me 5 strokes on Friday. If those swings go how they normally do in any other situation, I'm 15th heading into the weekend and I'm not missing the cut." It really truly can be one swing or two can mean such a massive difference on the tour.
You're exactly right. I mean, it's the momentum is so crucial to in the game of golf. Confidence, momentum. When you have it, you never feel like you're going to lose it, and when you don't have it, you feel like, man, I'm never going to gain it. But
Right.
you do need some of that momentum to get to feel like your round's going to keep going lower, or you can keep moving forward with your game. And I sort of watched a little bit of JT's round. He was, even par going into 18, his ninth hole of the day in the second round, middle of the fairway. I think he had maybe 4 or 5 iron in, catches it thin, goes in the water, and then he winds up, I think, making double there. And then he makes, just, tugs an iron shot at number 4, hits it in the water. But, at that point, when he's at 2 on the par, knowing he needs probably a couple birdies coming in the last 6 holes, you got to sort of push the pedal down a little bit to try and chase it a little bit. But that was having to chase that flag that maybe, if he makes a birdie or makes an eagle on number 18, he's at 3 or 4 on the par, he may be a little bit more conservative and make sure that shot's, 15 feet to the right or 20 feet to the right. So it's so crucial how 1 or 2 swings, 1 or 2 putts going in can change the momentum, dramatically in a round, and how that could also ultimately change the momentum in the tournament and the momentum going forward for you over the next, months or so in the game of golf.
Billy, let me ask you a question here. And I know this obviously depends on pin placement, depends on hazards and whatnot, and obviously position on the leaderboard. But in an average 18-hole round, how many pins are you going at versus hitting to a quadrant of the green?
Oh, that's a great question. Man, probably only a couple pins around, and you're more or less always trying to hit it towards a spot. You're not hitting it at the flag. You're landing it, maybe 2 paces short and 2 paces to the right, because it's going to bounce in the slope and it's going to, spin down to the left. Or, maybe, this week, especially at Sedgefield, you're going to try and make sure you have as many uphill putts as possible. So you may not always aim at the flag. You may aim a couple paces to the left. And so if you miss it left, you have the uphill putt. So, it all just depends on the player, the shot, the feel, the where
you are on the leaderboard and where you need to get.
Yeah, exactly. So not very often are you shooting directly at the flag. You're always, a little bit to one side, a little short, a little long, left, right, whatever it may be, and trying to work a shot towards the flag maybe.
Right. So lots of news coming out yesterday from the tour. We saw that Tiger has accepted a new position on the policy board. Now, to the average person, what does that mean?
So our policy board are the players that, well, there's player directors, and then there's board members, who I think we have 5 of them that are from, businesses or people in the business world that are on our board. And these people that are on the board, player directors or these board members, are ultimately the ones who, vote on and decide any changes that are to take place on the PGA Tour. So any business stuff, any governance, any situation that we're going to change some things with the PGA Tour, they ultimately vote on it. The PAC, which is a 16-member PGA Tour committee,
that you've been on, right?
Yeah, I've been on it before. I'm not on this year. They meet probably 5 times a year. The tour brings them, certain situations or certain things that are happening within the PGA Tour. They get a feel from that 16-member PAC, where the players stand on certain things. We're going to, increase FedEx Cup points or change tournament eligibility or whatever. And then from that, because the player directors are also part of the PAC, but they're not, they're just addition to the PAC. They sit there, listen, and then they go to the board. When they discuss these board items or these items with the board, the player directors share the opinions of the players, and then they ultimately decide, the best scenario to, for the PGA Tour. So, a lot of times if there's a lot of support for some changes to maybe the FedEx Cup system or eligibility requirements or something like that, the board's going to vote based off, the player directors and the board members are more likely going to vote based off what the PAC has shared or expressed going forward. So, but at the ultimate day, sometimes they don't go with the PAC with some situations, or certain things aren't always brought to the PAC, in my understanding. And so, that's why we have player directors there to give the player side of how they see things. And so Tiger now is an addition to the 5 player directors already. So now we have 6 player directors on the board.
Right. It says that no major decision can now be made in the future without prior involvement and approval of the player directors, the board has full authority to approve and decline the proposed deal with the PIF. Do you agree? And there's a Washington Post article out that says Tiger being added to this policy board is a direct result of what had happened with the Tour Live PIF deal. Do you agree that it has definitely led us in that direction?
Listen, I was on this call that discussed, the news of the day, of Tiger being announced. Yeah, I think, listen, if this PIF and PGA Tour deal wasn't announced, would Tiger have been on the board at this point in time? I don't think so. But I think after looking at all this, and I've said in the past, like I think the PGA Tour, and over my 14 years, has not been a member-run organization. It's been a member input organization, and I said sometimes, we may not, shouldn't be shared all the transparency with deals and everything going forward. But I do believe that there are players, and the player directors and the board should be aware of everything that's going on in the PGA Tour. Right. And when you look at this PIF and this PGA Tour deal, there was only 2 board members that were aware of it. The other 3 board members weren't. The other 5 player directors weren't aware of it. So I do believe the people at the board level need to be aware of what is always going on at the PGA Tour with deals and everything else, and that they need to be consulted going forward. And that's what this whole new process is about, is making sure that everything's is talked about with those people in the board and shared with, so the best decision can be made amongst those people for the direction of the PGA Tour.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and once again, I'm coming from a complete fan perspective. But like when you see the John Rahm, I saw John Rahm did a podcast earlier this week, and John said that he found out 3 minutes before. I just feel like players who are, whether it's Tiger and Rory level, whether it's somebody that was as vocal as you were in standing up for what you believed in the PGA Tour, whether it's John Rahm, I do believe that I understand that every player can't know. I get it. There's way too many players.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
But I do believe there are levels, and I hate to do that, but I think there are levels of players, and there are guys who have put on the gloves and gotten in the ring and fought for your organization. I think those people deserve to know more than 3 minutes ahead of time.
I don't disagree. Listen, end of the day, we all know our position on the PGA Tour. We know who brings in the sponsors, bring in the viewership, brings in the money. I mean, it's, we all know who those players are. We all know our position. And I don't think anyone has an issue with any of that. But like I said, I do agree that there are players that need to be aware of what is going to happen with the PGA Tour. Tiger is one of them. And I'm happy that Tiger is, Tiger and these players that signed this agreement or signed this letter to Jay and everything, pushing for Tiger to be on the board. This is someone who's elevated the PGA Tour over the last 30 years more so than anybody in the history of the PGA Tour. And that's going back to Jack and Arnie. And Jack and Arnie are great, but Tiger's taken it to a level that, none of them did. And listen, the commercial side of it and TV side is completely different than what it was when they started out. There's no doubt about it. But I do believe Tiger and Tiger's love for the PGA Tour. People don't understand he loves the PGA Tour. He believes so much in the PGA Tour. He tells us, he's like, Arnie, I don't know when this was, but at some point him and Arnie, were really close. I know they were, and he's talked about it. But Arnie said to him, he said, I'm handing over the reins to the PGA Tour to you. Like, this is your baby now. This is you taking care of it. You need to be the torchbearer of the PGA Tour and make sure that this PGA Tour is around for the next person to pass this off to, or next players to pass this off to. And Tiger's a big believer in that. And so to have someone like that who, cares so much about the PGA Tour and the legacy of the game and the legacy that, the people before him, the people in the game now and the people in the future, Tiger is the right man to, be in addition to already our player directors on this board.
Yeah. I mean, listen, as much as Tiger has done for the PGA Tour. I always enjoyed, and I'm sure you as a player and as a friend enjoyed his influence on the tour happening from inside the ropes. But unfortunately, as we all know, Father Time is undefeated, and Tiger is getting older. And then he's had the surgeries, he's had the accident. There's been a lot of stuff that's gone on. For him to be able to continue to cast his influence on the tour from now this position, I'm not saying Tiger can't play anymore because I'll never write him off. At Augusta, driving down Magnolia Lane seems to do something for him that just is magic, and it would be great to see it happen again. But being realistic and having realistic expectations, to see that this can be the next way he can influence the tour and use what he has is pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, listen, Tiger was driven when he was a player to achieve the goals he wanted, and people may give him a hard time that he may not have been more involved in the tour or whatever it was, that they wanted to say he didn't do enough of. But listen, the guy had a dream, had a goal of being the best player, of winning and achieving
Right.
greatness, and what he wanted to do.
Right.
And when you're that way, you don't have a lot of other time for other things that may come your way. But now that he's doesn't play as much anymore, and we've got more noise in the game of golf than we ever have. Tiger is like, hey, this is, I believe, and I'm speaking from what I believe of Tiger, is that he's like, I need to be more involved in this now. I need
Right.
to take a stance. I need to make sure that the players that are there that will be the next torchbearers, that I'm helping them,
Right.
and helping the PGA Tour for the next generations. And he said that, like, he's like, and like I said, he's been very supportive of every PGA Tour player, he wants the best for the PGA Tour and the best for us going forward, so that this thing is around and can be around for decades and generations, and especially for Charlie, if Charlie decides to go down that path to playing the PGA Tour.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it would be easy for him to just ride off into the sunset and spend time on his yacht and spend time with Charlie, and he's got his golf course design business, and he's got a lot going on. However, this is still very important to him. And so to be able to continue to form the PGA Tour and use his legacy for good is, very commendable. And I'm, happy to see that this is the next direction for Tiger. Still hoping he can still play at a competitive level and do what he can. I mean, let's be honest. He did make the cut at Augusta this year. That alone is just, unbelievable for the shape that his body's in. And much more than I do, but to see what the shape he's in and to be able to make the cut at Augusta in a major on the PGA Tour is still pretty remarkable.
Yeah, listen, the guy still is still impresses me to this day of what he's able to do, and I think people from the outside don't understand the limitations that his body has now, what he can and can't do, how much time he can practice, and everything else. So
yeah, what it takes to get ready for a round. I mean,
it takes a lot, and people don't understand what he goes through on a daily basis just to be able to practice and play this game of golf. So he's an impressive individual. He's always been impressive, and listen, the guy just is an unbelievable person, and I just don't think he's got enough credit for what he's done off the golf course.
Right.
Whether it's be getting ready for tournaments, or what he's done with his foundation, or how much he cares about, and how much time and energy he puts into, his other interest outside the game of golf. And so it's pretty impressive. And, I'm just lucky enough that I have a small window to see, some of that.
I just want to see, I want to see Charlie play, and I'm waiting for Axel Horschel to play, because I see little Axel out there playing. He's getting that day. He loves golf. Little man loves him some golf, man.
He does. He's he wants to wear what daddy wears all the time. If he's watching me, if he's at a tournament, he wants to wear the same shirt I have, and same color pants, obviously in shorts version. But yeah, he loves the game of golf. He's he's all into it right now. So it's just really cool. And he's like I said, he's 4 years old, and he loves his dad very much. And
He does.
I'm so lucky to have not only him but my other two girls that
Yeah.
just are, look at me as their hero, and so that's something special to have.
No, I think if anybody that watched the ending of the memorial in 2022, to see the family reaction on 18 was super, super special. And I know maybe a little more special for those of us that are, that are lucky enough to call you a friend and know you. But to see that family reaction on 18 was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was probably nice to have. It's something that it's one of those goals. There's still probably 4 or 5 goals that I want to achieve before I'm done, but that was one of them. Is have that moment where my family was there to see me win, run out on the green, and so yeah, it was an unbelievable moment to have them there, and they still talk about it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this year, as my wife and we were joking, or she was joking last week, they've learned more about the cut than they've ever had to learn about, in their little young lives.
Right.
Because Daddy hasn't missed very many cuts on a yearly basis. But this year they've learned their importance of the cut, and they're always they've been asking me a little bit more. Daddy, are you going to make the cut? Or Daddy, are you going to make the cut? And so after I played on Friday, and I played early in the morning, and I was clearly making the cut,
Right.
They kept asking me, hey, are you making the cut? Are we going home early? And I'm like, no, we're good. And I'm like, how? Skylar understood. Colby, didn't really understand. I was like, well, I'm what was I don't know, 8 on the par or whatever, and
Yeah.
the cut 4, and so I'm like, I'm good. It's not going to change. So
Right.
they've got a new education of what the cut is this year.
Well, wait, let's hope next year they don't have to worry about that. Next year it's, hey Dad, how many shots out of the lead are you? And how late is your tee time on Sunday?
Well, and that's what they started asking me on the weekend. Dad, do you have a late tee time or do you have an early tee time? I'm like, well, I have a late tee time. I'm like, well, that's good.
That's
And
good.
So I'd like to hear more of that of what tee time, or do we have a late tee time on Saturday and Sunday going forward?
Another story that's come out recently is the ball rollback and the PG. I love the stance of the tour's taken, and they will not honor the ball rollback on the PGA Tour. Where are you on that? And does that surprise you that decision was made, or did you kind of see that coming?
Listen, I wasn't surprised by the stance the PGA Tour took. It's been a handful of years now that this has been been talked about, and I think the tour, every time the USGA puts out information, they put out information of their own that sort of refutes some of the the numbers that the USGA sends out, and so like I said, I'm not surprised by it. Maybe I'm a little surprised that they did it this early and took this stance in the sense of, hey, we're fine. Like I knew that was going to happen. But usually, if you looked in the past, they've always tried to work with the USGA on some stuff. And but yeah, I'm not shocked, and I think it's the right stance. I'm sure there's people that believe we should have a rollback. I don't think the golf ball is the reason why we're hitting it so far. TrackMan, I would say, would be the number one, would be 1A. Being able to optimize our the flight and the spin characteristics and everything, so we get every little yard we can out of a driver.
And the fact that you're working out in the gym, athlete. Yeah. I mean, you guys are full on athletes.
We're 1B would be we've got bigger guys, guys that are more strong or more athletic. Guys are just taller.
Faster.
If you took what the average size of a PGA Tour was at 10 years ago to what they are now, I'm sure the height of the average tour player, and I say weight, but weight can be a little bit of whatever. But
what about club head speed? I mean, club head speed has had to increase.
1B, but the taller you are, the wider the arc is, the more club head speed you can generate. Right. That's just a proven scientific fact. And then you look at the shafts of the driver, or the shafts are lighter, so you can swing them faster. The driver head is bigger, and its sweet spot's bigger, so you can swing harder, and you can still hit somewhat of the center of the face, and the ball doesn't go nearly far as offline. So, listen, do I think the ball rollback is really going to have that great of an effect, and guys hitting it less far? Yeah, it may have for a period of time, but guys are going to start swinging faster and harder.
But doesn't it hurt the guy that doesn't hit it that far more than it hurts the guy that hits it far?
Yeah, I yes, agree. The guy who hits it shorter is going to have more of a disadvantage now than the guy who hits it further. And Roy put it this way, where maybe he was hitting a 5-iron into a par 5, he's going to be hitting maybe a 5-wood now. And where the guy who is shorter was hitting maybe a 5-wood into a par 5, he's not going to be able to get there now. So
Right.
that's a big disadvantage right then and there. And so I can't believe the USGA is talking about, rolling back a ball for the 0.0001% of the golfer in the game of golf. The average amateur isn't hitting it too far.
No.
The average amateur isn't playing from the tips. They're playing from 63 to 6,500 yards.
Right.
I understand courses are being built longer. I understand some of these historic courses are becoming obsolete. But at the end of the day, we have innovation, and innovation is a great thing. But why are these courses that aren't holding tournaments, adding link to the courses when no one plays a back tees? It's like I was talking to someone who used to work with USGA, who no longer does, and we sort of joked about, he said the best grass on every golf course is the back tees at majority of these golf courses.
Because nobody's playing it.
And so, listen, I don't know what the USGA is going to do. I don't know what the RNA is going to do. I've said for a while now, I would like to see more dispersion into the game of golf. How do we do that? I don't know, but I think maybe by reducing the driver head size, reducing the center of the sweet spot, where you're rewarding the guy for hitting the center of the sweet spot more often. And if they don't hit it, the ball goes more offline. I think that is what we've sort of lost in our game of golf because of technology, and we've all benefited from technology. But I think at our level, the professional level, dispersion has been lost. I would say if you go back 10, 15, 20 years and looked at how the dispersion of drives and iron shots, it's a lot tighter now than it was back then.
So what's it going to do at the U.S. Open?
Which is a great thing to have. But, the reward for hitting the center of the sweet spot has been reduced a little bit at our level, at the top level of the game of golf. But, like I said, I don't know what's going to come of everything.
So if the USGA does, in fact, implement this rule, does that mean the U.S. Open, you will have to use a different ball at the U.S. Open?
I mean, there's a possibility that we may use a different ball at all four majors than we play with on a regular basis.
For all four majors? Oh, so even that would include the Masters, the PGA, and the Open Championship?
I would see the Masters probably siding with the USGA. Obviously, RNA is going to, be, in line with the USGA more than likely. And then the PGA Championship, it's an interesting one. They've come out against the rollback, I believe. I think Seth Waugh and a lot of those PGA professionals had said, they don't believe this is the right thing to do. So maybe the PGA Championship doesn't institute, this ball if it does go down that way, and they be the oddity of the three majors. So
does that mean that the ball manufacturers then now have to go back and in their factories now start making a different golf ball?
Possibly. Some of them said they may not make a golf ball because of the cost it's going to take. It's going to cost 10, 20, 30 million dollars of research, and people
there's
think
no amateur going to buy that ball. Who's going to go in and go, I'm going to roll up to Dick's or Golf Galaxy or PGA Superstore here, and I want the one that goes shorter. Nobody's buying that.
They're not going to sell it. And people say, well, they can just change the ball now. I'm like, no, talking with them, it's like, it's just not that easy. We have to go back and change the characteristics of everything with the golf ball, from speaking with some of the manufacturers, and end of the day, companies, or some of these companies are public, and it's a bottom line dollar. And if they're losing $40 million, on an annual basis, and they're not bringing any revenue for it, they're not going to make a golf ball. And I'm not saying they've said, hey, we're not going to make one, but they've sort of said, hey, we may just not make one. There may just be one ball manufacturer that makes a ball.
There's no return on investment. I mean, there's just not.
So I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, there's just a lot of, talk about it, and sort of people, coming to, coming figuring out if this is going to happen or not.
Right.
And so, whether and brainstorming on things. So, we'll see. But like I said, would Titleist make a rollback ball? And I'm sponsored by Titleist. I don't know. We've had conversations. They said, hey, we don't know what we would do. And but I do know, just talking with Titleist and other manufacturers, they said it costs money. It's going to cost them, money on somewhat of a yearly basis to make this golf ball, because you're just not going to make it and then, keep that same golf ball for the years going forward. You're going to try and find some way to make that golf ball better. Within the rules that are, put in place.
Yeah. And speaking of uncertainty, real quick, this whole merger deal, I know it's going through congressional hearings, and there's been all kinds of rumors, and you've had people on, namely only one, Phil, saying that guys that are over there have no desire to play the PGA Tour, which I don't believe any of that. What does the merger mean? Is it all going to be one? Is it two separate tours? Do we even know what the future looks like 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Or is that all different as we go year to year?
I don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what this it's not even a merger. It's an investment from the PIF.
Okay, so there is no merger.
It's no merger. It's an investment with the PIF into the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour is going to take control of LIV and have final authority on whether LIV sticks around or what that's going to look like.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, as I've been telling people, I said what we see in 23 may not be what we see in 24, and in 2025 may not be what we saw in 24.
Right.
And I've just been saying, I think we're about 5 years. I'm saying in 5 years, we'll probably see what the final product and how the game of golf is going to look like going forward. I have an idea that I think we're going to create a global tour and go around the world a little bit more and with a smaller field of players. But that's my idea. And I think that's,
right.
Way the game's going. And then you have, I think you have a pyramid system, the global tour, and then you have the, Korn Ferry and Challenge Tour, or the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour, sort of feeding up to the, global tour, and then everything, somewhat along that way. But, that's my idea, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But I think we're a ways away from, knowing what everything, how
the
it's all
final
going to
product,
play out.
Knowing what it is. It's a fluid situation that will probably change a bunch of times before we get to the final product.
Yeah. And, the game of golf's in a great spot. We got a lot of support at the PGA Tour level from all the sponsors and fans out there. The TV, numbers have been unbelievable this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what we just need to do is you need to figure out some way to limit the noise and the negative noise and the noise that's not, pushing the game of golf and pushing, things in a more positive way, in my opinion.
Yeah. So we got the final week of the PGA Tour this week. We're at Sedgefield for the Wyndham. Have you gotten you've obviously gotten your draw yet? Are you early, late, or late, early?
Early, late. So, yeah, my draw's been crazy this year. I think I counted it up with my caddy, Micah. My caddy, Micah, who used to caddy for me for about 7 years. I brought him back on the bag at PGA. But, yeah, I think we were counting up. I think I've had like 9 or 10 morning draws, early, late draws versus the late, early draw. And it's supposed to be pretty random, and he's supposed to be 50-50. But you know what? It's just one of those things where I've had more early, late draws than late, early draws.
So you're early, late this time. Which,
yeah, I'm early, late.
Is that good? Do you like an early, late?
You know what? I like whatever draw I play well in.
Right. A lot of times the weather determines that. Like last week, there was a big difference. If you had
correct.
an early draw on Thursday,
we got the benefit of the doubt early.
Yes.
Benefit of the doubt last week, no doubt about it. There's times like right now, I feel like I had so many early, late draws. I practiced early on Tuesday mornings, and then right now, because of where I finished last year in the FedEx, I played early Pro-Am time, and so that early draw on Thursdays, it's 3 straight mornings of waking up, at 4 or 4:30 or 5, something like that, depending on my tee time or when I'm going to go out and practice and everything. But right. Yeah, sometimes it's like, man, I wish that I would have a late draw on Thursday a little more often so I get to sleep in. But listen, it doesn't really matter. But like you said, it's probably more weather dependent on, how the draw works. Like, hey, if the weather's going to be really bad, on the opposite side of my draw, like I'm happy I had that
right.
draw. So listen, all us PGA Tour players, at the end of the day, we only care about ourselves
right.
and getting the best of the draw. And we know when we've been screwed in the draw. There's no doubt about that.
No, for sure. It just seems like late Thursday, early Friday, you kind of get all your golf in together instead of play early, sit around, play late. I mean, it's But
Look,
like you said, it really depends on the weather. And if
if
you're,
you're
you know, if you're
playing
swinging
well,
well,
if you're playing well, it really doesn't matter. But if you if you feel like you're playing well and you go out and you play a great Thursday round, and then you're like, man, I can't wait to get back out there Friday. You got the same feels. It's only 12 hours difference from the
right?
time you walked off the golf course to the time you're back on the golf course. And so it's a real quick turnaround. And so it feels like, hey, man, this is just like I felt like I went to go take a little nap. I'm back on the golf course, and it feels like you didn't leave, and you're back
Right.
into playing great golf like you did the day before. So, listen, a lot of guys will like the late early because if they can play well on Thursday, it sort of just filters into playing another great round on Friday. Where if you're early on Thursday, you got to sit around for almost 24 hours before you're back out on the golf course.
Right. So as you get started this week, I saw today, I think JT said he needs an 18th or better finish to get himself into the FedEx Cup playoffs. Do you know where you need to finish this week to get into the FedEx Cup?
Yeah, I think I haven't seen. I can talk to our PGA Tour FedEx expert that we have out here, but I think I need a solo second, make it the job done. I've got 350 points. I think 70th right now, somewhere around like 610 to 625.
Mm-hmm.
And so a solo second would get it done. That's 300
Which you've done
points.
that here before. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. And so, but really, I'm just going for the win. I've got nothing to lose this week. I'm going to go out. I'm going to play to win. Not that I haven't done that, but it's been a little tough when you don't have that confidence to feel like you can win.
Right.
Now I feel like I got a little confidence, a little momentum. I'm going out for the win. That's my sole focus this week. I'm going to play to win. I'm going to, have that mentality. I'm going to win this week. And just that focus of just winning. And
how'd your practice round go today?
Yeah, it was a great practice session. I got my teacher Todd Anderson up here for a couple of days, and we were just fine tuning a few things. And so, we're excited about where my game of golf is heading. And listen, whatever happens this week, it happens. But I'm just excited that everything's moving forward. There's some momentum going. I got some great tournaments coming up at the end of this year, and we're gonna, we're just excited about where things are finally, trending.
So speaking of the end of the year, you'll play this week. Obviously, if you get a win, you continue into the FedEx Cup playoffs. You finish second in FedEx Cup. But if not, like you said, you've got good momentum going forward, and you are looking forward to the end of the year. Where else will we see you play before the year ends in November, December?
Yeah, so depending on how this week goes, I'll either go to Memphis next week or have about a month off. I'm going to go play the Irish Open at the K Club. Excited about that. I'll be over at the BMW event in Wentworth. And then I've got another.
But you've won that before, correct?
Yeah, I won that back in 21.
21.
I've got another event that they're going to announce here probably in the next couple of weeks that I'm going to play in over there. And then I'm going to play the Dunhill Links Championship again, which I played the last 2 years. The first year I played with my dad. Last year I played with my good friend Mark Noble, who just retired from football last year from West Ham, the club I support, and the club he's a legend at, absolute legend. And then this year I've got a new partner. I can't announce that partner yet because they just, confirmed that my partner, and they are, sending out the invitations, but, that will be announced here in a couple of weeks. And I'm excited to, play with this partner this year at Dunhill. It's going to be an incredible experience.
And then we got some Gator football on the way as well, too, which I think we might be in for a little bit of a long year. This schedule's tough this year, Billy.
I think we have the toughest schedule.
We do.
Seen it somewhere. Listen, I'm excited about what the players are saying and the cohesiveness and the togetherness that they have this year compared to last year. We've got more talent on the team, but listen, we're young. We're still figuring it all out. But I like what Billy Napier, I like what his staff's doing. I like what the players are doing. So, we'll see what happens. Crazy things are, have gone on in sport, and you never know. We go to Utah. We win at Utah. That could be a big win for us. And we get some of these, tough games that we have early, and we go out and win. That gives our team a tremendous amount of confidence, tremendous amount of momentum that they can do this. And you just never know what can happen.
And we got to keep the recruiting class. That recruiting class that we've got put together for next year right now, I believe is top 1 or 2 or 3 in the country. With we're getting the quarterback DJ Lagway. If we're able to hang on to that, the NIL has completely just
we
turned
talked
college
about the NIL and the transfer. I mean, it's changed college sport.
It is.
It sucks.
And it's
Good.
not changed it
It's
in a
good
good
and
way.
it's bad. It's good and it's bad. But man, it's just changed the landscape of college sports, and it's just insane. I mean,
It is.
so. But listen, we're doing some great things at the University of Florida. I'm excited about not only football but every other sport. Obviously, golf.
Golf team just had a huge year.
Yep. I mean, all these other teams that won national championships this year has been pretty impressive. Listen, we're doing some great things there, and that culture of winning. When one team wins, it just breeds other teams wanting to top that same success that other team have, and it's similar to what I say are the golden years, the glory years at the University of Florida. When I was there, when we had 2 football and 2 basketball, and we had swimming national championships. I think we may have had some gymnastics championships and some others, and track and field and everything else. So that's coming back to the University of Florida, and that's pretty exciting.
It is. Well, Billy, thanks as always for your time, man. We've been sitting here just shooting it for an hour. Appreciate it. And always love having you on. Thanks to About Golf Simulators. And by the way, we're not sponsored by LFG. I know it looks like we might be, but Matt Every's just a good dude. I know Billy's really good friends with him. He's a former Gator as well. And so we love the LFG stuff.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Obviously, I got my BDO hat that I wear, every time I'm on the golf course, even off the golf course. But there's always times that I like supporting my buddy's brand, my buddy's Matt's brand whenever I can. It's a cool looking hat, cool looking logo, and everyone always wonders what LFG stands for. So we won't tell them what LFG stands for. They got to look it up on the interweb. We call it the interweb.
Tom Brady likes that phrase too.
Exactly. And so yeah, we're have people, if you're curious, go look it up.
Good deal, Billy. Appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon. Play well this week. We'll be pulling for you, and hopefully we see you in the FedEx Cup playoffs.
Awesome. Thanks, Froggy.